They told you Marx was a man of the people. That he wrote for justice, for freedom, for equality. That he was just a philosopher, a thinker, a revolutionary with a vision. But what if I told you the roots of that vision weren't built on justice at all, but on hatred? On chaos? On a desire not to liberate the world, but to burn it? You've never read this in textbooks. It's almost never discussed publicly. But once you uncover the full extent of what Marx actually wrote, the things he scribbled in the dark corners of his youth, the verses soaked in rage and the glorification of evil, you start to see a man not simply inspired by economics, but possessed by something far more violent, more apocalyptic, more primal. In the early 1830s and 40s, Marx didn't spend his time writing about class struggle and economic theory. No, he wrote poetry. Dozens of pieces, some published, some hidden, some that feel more like confessions than art. And in those poems, those chaotic, venomous outpourings, you find a different Marx. A Marx who dreams of destruction. Who glorifies evil, who envies the power of the devil, who challenges not only rulers and clergy but the very essence of reality. Let's take The Player, Der Spielmann, a poem few even know exists. In it, Marx paints a picture of a musician who enchants the world with his songs, until you realize the songs are spells, and the music is madness. One verse says the following: "With Satan I have struck my deal, he chalks the signs, beats time for me, I play the death march fast and free, and with wild laughter, I feel the seal." This isn't just metaphor. The seal, in occult tradition, often refers to the mark of a pact, the sealing of a soul. Here, Marx imagines himself not just in rebellion, but in league with infernal forces, performing a death march for mankind. The implication? He isn't trying to save the world. He wants to bury the world. That same sentiment echoes in his lost tragedy Olanum. This isn't just a play, it's a scream. A howl against creation. The main character, Olanum, is a wandering nihilist who speaks of cosmic betrayal and dreams of bringing existence to an end. His most infamous monologue is almost too disturbing to believe. "I shall howl gigantic curses at mankind. I shall feel within me the Creator's force, and as it breaks, I will shout, 'Collapse, world! Fall into ruin!'" This is not a man seeking reform. Not someone who wants to build a better world. This is the poetry of annihilation. Of spiritual war. Olanum doesn't just represent rebellion. He is rebellion, stripped of purpose. Rebellion not as liberation, but as damnation. And this wasn't a one-off. Marx returned to the theme of destruction for its own sake again and again. In a letter to Arnold Ruge in 1843, he wrote, "The ruthless criticism of all that exists." Not the criticism of injustice, not of tyranny, of all that exists. That's a different kind of fire. That's the fire that consumes everything, even truth, even beauty, even freedom. In the Communist Manifesto, Marx famously writes, "The communists openly declare that their ends can be attained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions." That sounds political, until you remember what he said years earlier. Overthrow everything. All existing conditions. That's not just governments or monarchies. That's reality itself in question. In fact, some scholars, not conspiracy theorists, but legitimate historians, have noted that Marx's early fascination with destruction took on the tone of a kind of anti-theology. Where religion tries to explain the world as creation, Marx sought to describe it as inversion. And if you look closer at his philosophical stance, especially his concept of alienation, you start to see it. He believed man was alienated from his nature, from his work, from each other. But he never sought a return to harmony. He wanted to rip the veil off, expose the wound, and let it bleed. He didn't want restoration. He wanted rupture. There are even stranger connections, ones many avoid because they are too controversial. Marx's father converted from Judaism to Protestant Christianity, largely for professional reasons. But Marx rejected both religions entirely. And more than rejected, he scorned them with a venom that seems personal, even spiritual. In one scathing passage, he refers to Christianity as the opiate of the masses, yes. But in another, more obscure letter, he calls religion the fantastic realization of the human essence because the human essence has no true reality. That is not just atheism. That is metaphysical despair. Marx didn't just deny God. He wanted to unmake him. So why does none of this ever come up when people talk about him? Why do we rarely see his early writings mentioned in his later political debates or academic discussions we know today? Because they don't fit the image. Because they blur the lines. Because they make us ask, what was Marx really trying to do? Did he want to free mankind, or lead it into a fire? The modern left doesn't want to deal with these writings. The right misuses them, but in between lies the truth. Marx was more than a theorist. He was a radical metaphysician. A poet of destruction. A man whose vision of utopia began with the complete and utter obliteration of everything that came before. Not a reformer. Not a redeemer. A revolutionary prophet of ruin. And if you think that sounds like the devil's work, well, you're not alone.